Okay.
That's the big thing right there. So sorry for that bad joke, but it's usually it is very true though. That's but cool. Well, thanks for dealing with that. My computer breaking down. I did not expect it to take 15 minutes for it to download and restart and do all that stuff like that too. So, but thanks for your
No
patience.
worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
Cool. Yeah. So thanks for being on the show, Matt. The first question we usually ask is, how did you get into the web? Like, what was your first experience with the web, and what did you think about it?
Well, I first started back in college. My roommate back then got started at a small web agency, and they had another opening. And so I just kind of, was interested and had an opportunity, and so started learning. I signed up. And we started, this was back in 97, so we were using Perl back then. It was quite a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, yeah. I had had a little bit of coding in college, but this was sort of really, I learned on the job. And so I started on back end and just found that I really enjoyed it. And I've been doing it ever since.
Mm-hmm. So what type of projects would you be dealing with?
Back then, yeah, we were doing a lot of like info center, like small intranet type projects, sort of wiki style, database backed hosting content for Silicon Valley tech companies, sales portals, that kind of thing. It's been, migrated since then. I've been doing a lot more WordPress lately. I've switched to more full stack. But yeah, back then it was internet.
Yeah, cool. And then, how did you get involved with WordPress?
Just kind of as technology moves on, just new things come forward, and somebody where I was working pulled out a project and said, "Hey, there's this new Drupal thing." And so I looked at Drupal for a while, and then we looked at WordPress, and I was a lot more attracted to WordPress. And so there was some projects that came up using it, and just dove right in, and I've really been enjoying that. It's nice, the sort of the standard foundation it gives you, but still a lot of flexibility. And there's a clean upgrade path from version to version that I found.
Okay. Yeah. So how long have you been working? How long have you been with WordPress then?
I've been using WordPress for a good 4 years, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I'm not going to start a war between WordPress and Drupal for you. I don't think
I
that way.
appreciate that.
No problem. So you hate Drupal? Is that what you're saying? No. So, cool. Yeah. So, and not to get into code too much, I just want to talk about this. But what I really found awesome is that you designed and built your own home.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's great. Can you? I think that's, I think it's great when. How did that happen? I mean, it's just like, I think it's awesome that you did that. But like, how did you start doing that? And what was the process behind it? Like, what was the motivation behind it?
The motivation was largely financial.
Okay.
We were living in the Bay Area, my wife and I, and we had 2 kids, and just kind of looking at house prices and thinking, this isn't sustainable. This was back in 2004. They can't keep doing this. And so we sold the house we were in. We rented for a while, trying to figure out what was next. And then we decided, what if we just bought land and built a house? And my chatting with my parents, and they said, actually, we're living in Southern California. And they said, what if we did this together? And we were kind of surprised at that. And so we ended up buying land together and building separate houses. And it was just, it made a lot of sense when we started the process in 2006. We bought land. We kind of talked about what we wanted to do. We're on 10 acres in the Sierra foothills. So it's a really, really nice place. And we were able to design it just the way we wanted it. Really open floor plan, lots of natural wood, very efficient building style, and efficient to heat. We just heat with wood, and it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah. Like, so what if someone were going to do that? What would you recommend? What steps would they take to do that? Like,
You need to be okay with everything taking longer than you expect. You need to have a really good relationship with your partner, just because it's a huge undertaking. It's an enormous undertaking. For the 2 years we were working on it, every spare moment, every spare dollar, just everything went towards the house. Because we were owner builder, we did a lot of the work ourselves. We hired out some things, but as much as we could, we did ourselves. And it's just an enormous time commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how long? I want to ask you everything about the project, so hopefully that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
I love talking about it.
oh well, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. Because I have no other than try to read your blog about it about the process. Like I have no personal vantage point. Like that's a really outside my experience right there. So I have a lot of questions about it. So you just bought bought a lot with your relatives, and then separate houses. How did you know, like, for floor plans? How did you know which floor plan you wanted? Did you look at other floor plans or blueprints, or like how did you know, like, to start from, like, what floor plan would you like to use?
Yeah. We did a lot of research. We did a lot of reading, looking at just tiny houses and efficient houses and just optimal use of space.
Mm-hmm.
Looked at other people we know, houses that we liked. We did some research on efficient building because we knew we wanted to keep the structure and the roof line as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We did a two-story house just because it's a more cost-effective for the footprint.
Okay.
And we wanted to heat with wood, so we wanted an open floor plan. I really like the look of exposed timber and timber beams.
And so, by
And
heat with wood, what does that mean exactly? Is that like a stove or stop?
yeah,
Like
so a wood burning stove. We
burning
have
stove.
a wood burning stove. We harvest oak from the property, and I cut the trees down with a chainsaw and split it with a maul,
Okay.
and that's how we heat.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So yeah, just we kind of on paper drew up what we wanted for the floor plans, and then we worked with a local company to translate that into CAD drawings, and they had somebody who did the engineering work to make sure everything was engineered for snow load, and submitted the plans to the county, and that was what got us started.
Oh wow. And snow load. How much snow do you get outside in the area? This
On
is
a
this is from and just by the way, to let you know, I'm from Florida, so this is kind of like a weird thing. I mean, a weird thing. So I'm assuming you get like tons of snow.
No, we don't get tons of snow.
Okay.
The last few years, since we're in California, they've been not such good snow years. On a decent snow year, we get 2 or 3 storms that dump 2 to 3 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and then it melts off. We might get a dusting here and there. So we're not talking like Tahoe amounts of snow,
Right.
but snow is heavy, and so the roof
Right.
has to be able to support it.
Right. Okay. Cool. And then,
Yeah.
so your floor plan, it gets okay by the government, and then I would spend all day talking about it, but I don't want to. This is not the house podcast, house podcast. But what things did you? What can you name, like, 1 or 2, 3 things that about the house that you feel like are unique, or like that helps your career? Like, as I work from home, I take it.
I do work from home.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's things that are unique. The floor, we have a hallway upstairs with some oak flooring,
Mhm.
and that oak flooring is reclaimed from my grandparents' house in Houston,
Oh wow.
and it's flooring that I took some of my first steps on, and my grandfather helped me lay it.
Wow.
So that's just, I feel like it's an
Nice.
incredible connection.
Mm-hmm. That's really
Uh,
cool.
yeah.
That's,
I because I work from home, we homeschool too, and we're usually always here. Right now, my family's out. Otherwise, it'd be a little noisier. But it's nice just to be here to help out if necessary. My wife can go out and run an errand, and there's still somebody here with the kids, and it's nice to have that ability.
yeah. Right. Cool. But I'm, like, talking about, like, in general, just like the anything interesting about the floor plan for your home office, or is anything, I don't know, Do you have like a secret butler elevator to the kitchen or something? I don't
No, there's nothing special. I mean,
know.
I ran Ethernet to the rooms,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of work, there's nothing really special.
Nothing special, just straight up. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's just a spare bedroom I'm using as an office.
Yeah, there's nothing crazy or like nothing special. The whole thing's
Uh-uh.
special, just to build your own house. So,
Yeah.
was it 3 years to take? 2006 to
Uh,
2009? Is that right?
from when we bought the land to when we were final DS, the actual
Oh,
construction was about 2 years.
okay, 2 years. Okay, and then so that's awesome. Well, that's pretty cool. I do not know many people who actually have done that. So that's pretty awesome. So that's a big project. And so, and during the whole construction process, you were still working full time and.
I was, yeah, I was working mostly full time. I took a month off at the beginning just to kind of get the project rolling,
Mhm.
and then I was working mostly full time during that process. Yeah.
Okay, all right, sweet. Okay, cool. Well, I'll stop asking about the house now. Okay, so I do. You have another project we're working on. I'm not sure how long it's been, but it's you're working on a book as well for better HTML forms. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's been kind of an on again, off again project.
Okay.
Right now, it's in the off again stage, just because I'm not convinced it's something people are looking for,
Hmm.
and so I've spent time on it. I've got to start on it, but uh, I'm unsure how well it will sell, and so right now it's in the off again phase of the project.
Well, tell me more about it.
The idea is that creating forms online is not an easy thing to do in HTML. There's a lot of ways to do it wrong. There's a few ways to do it right. There's a lot of intricacy to make them easier to use. For instance, with HTML5, we have the different input types, and that can affect the keyboard that appears on a mobile device. Dealing with placeholder fields, and when you click into a form that just uses a placeholder for the label, you lose the label. So there's a lot of things like that, usability things that are um, challenging, it seems, for people to do. People just seem to take the easy way out. And so my idea was, okay, I'll write this book that shows how to do all of these different things in a standard way, an accessible way, and just kind of make it easier for people to, quote unquote, do the right thing.
Right.
Not diving into a particular, form generation technology or platform, just straight HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so it can be used anywhere. That's the theory behind the project.
Okay. Yeah, I will say like one of the hardest things when I was learning HTML back in the day was understanding HTML forms, and that because I didn't have a Perl background, so I can execute a form and think, "Am I doing this right? I'm not really sure I'm doing this right." And then to be able to generate the forms correctly with labels, and I don't think we had like labels like a standard for labels back then. I was just like just trying to generate the HTML constructs of a form were very hard to do. So it's not as easy as placing an image on a web page and like, oh, there it is. So,
Right.
uh, pretty good. Yeah, I think forms are pretty tough. I find it kind of tough. Today, I was actually dealing with just a small simple form for the 10K project over at a list apart,
Mm-hmm.
and that contest. I was just had to like throw a form together. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just like they should work, but I don't deal with forms all the time, and so
Right.
yeah. So like when you do want to use forms, it's nice to have a really good solid backup because I find like programmers who program and that's what they do, or engineers or whatever they want to call themselves. They say they know HTML, but then they don't know HTML, right? They don't know like how to construct a good HTML form, and
Right.
designers don't know like how what goes into building a good practical form. So and then, but I like it how you want to integrate it with SAS and BM. So is it Beam or is it BEM? Is it
Bam.
BEM? Okay, see there we go.
Yeah.
See, I'm not part of like I'm a part of the shootout of Smacks and OCS. But yeah, so cool. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty awesome. So yeah, how far away do you think you are from finishing it up or wrapping up?
Um, it's a question of scope. I keep thinking of new things to include. Do I get into any kind of a back-end processing? Do I keep it entirely front-end? If I sat down and worked at it, I could probably be done in 2 months. So maybe end of year.
Okay.
But like I said, right now it's currently on the back burner. But if there's a lot of interest and people say, hey, that would be great, I'd love that, then that could push it back to the front.
Okay, cool. Well, it's called Better HTML Forms Book, and we'll have a link to it in our show notes in case people want to sign up for there's a launch discount code, I guess, or I guess basically a newsletter when you'll announce it, right?
Yes.
When the book's sweet. I signed up for it just now.
Cool.
So I
awesome.
As someone who's written like more than my fair share of web books, I look forward to reading yours. So.
Oh.
But yeah, it's not an easy process to write a book. So I commend you for at least attempting. I think if you're that close, I will let me know what we can do to get you over the edge to finish it out. But but you actually built and designed your own home, so I don't think you need any help from me.
Yeah, I have actually finished a book. And I wrote a book. Yeah, I wrote a book on backpacking with kids.
Oh, no way. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So we have 5 kids now, and we've actually been with all of them. But I wrote a book on backpacking with kind of elementary to middle school age kids.
Nice.
So.
Okay. Is that still out and about, or?
It is out. It's on. I'll get you the URL.
Okay.
I wrote it for a project. I'm blanking on the name of the selling platform. But they had a create something in 10 days project.
Okay.
And so I participated in that and wrote that book. And my daughter, who at the time was 13, wrote the introduction to it. So it's really cool.
Okay, that's nice. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any top tips for backpacking with kids?
Be patient.
Okay.
Don't make them carry too much weight.
Okay. And
make sure that what they are carrying, their clothing, their backpacks, it's appropriately sized. Okay. Don't get something that they will grow into, because it can be tough to have equipment that's not your size.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did not see that.
I don't
research.
Yeah, I don't think it's mentioned on the website. I should add that.
That's all right. Awesome. Cool. Cool. Sweet. I'll put that in the show notes as well in case anyone's interested about that. But yeah, so one thing I think one of the reasons why I'm talking to you is because one of the things we do at Environments for Humans is that we actually send out list of information, all articles out there for people on our Twitter account, E4H. And one thing I noticed was I kept on coming back to your website because you kept on having some really great articles from your blog. And so I just really wanted to say thank you for doing that. For
sure,
really great
thank
stuff.
you.
So, and one of them is Introduction to Critical CSS and WordPress. Mm-hmm. And I just want to get your thoughts on can you just break that down a little bit of what is critical CSS for people who might not know that, and bringing that into WordPress.
Sure. So critical CSS is a web performance technique, and the idea is that you can take the CSS that is of importance or is necessary for a sort of primary rendering of the page, what's above the fold, so to speak. You take that and you inline it in your HTML, and your bulk, your CSS, you still include it, but you load it in a deferred manner, so it loads later. And that the idea is that the web browser will get all of the information it needs to actually render the page sooner than if it was having to download all the CSS, because in that initial HTML dump, it gets all the CSS it needs, and if you defer to JavaScript, it has everything it needs to render the page. And it's just a way to make a page load faster. And the way that I've done that with WordPress, I was working on a project where we were exploring that, and I used some tools from Filament Group to look at each page. I picked some key pages, either high-level pages on the site or pages that were represented a common pattern. So like all the products pages are pretty similar. And so you only have to do critical CSS for one of them. And so I have this process, was a series of grunt tasks that looked at each of those pages, looked at each page in several key resolutions, and generated the CSS for the critical CSS for that particular page for all those resolutions, merged it together, and stored that as a separate file on the server. And then when WordPress is building the page, it basically says, okay, let me see what page I'm building. Let me go look at my list of all these critical CSS files and see if I have one that matches. If I do, great. Inline it, use the async CSS, everything else, and that's how it works, and it's a lot smoother. It involved doing some work with Grunt to to build those critical CSS files. And it found the process was it was slow. I couldn't do it on every time. It's definitely not something you do on every delivery, every time that the web page is delivered. It's something you do whenever you make updates to the site. You do it periodically when you make theme updates. And we just run this as part of the build process to create these critical CSS files and get them included in the site. Some of the other things you need to think about with critical CSS is you don't need to deliver the critical CSS for second time and on visitors. You really only need it for a first time visitor. So you need to be able to know if a visitor has come before, so if they have the CSS cached or not. So that gets into using cookies to track the visitor behavior. And if the cookie for the CSS is present, you don't need to inline the critical CSS. One of the issues that we ran into was cookies and their CDN, and their CDN didn't pass cookies through correctly. So we, at the end of the day, weren't able to use the solution. But everything worked, and it was a really neat implementation. And I realized that I have a 4 or 5 part blog series on that in mind, and I've only written the first one.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll have to revisit that.
See, I'm here to tell you that you need to finish your book and your blog series. Just to do. So this is my phone call to you. Just like, Matt, you're doing great work. Just need to push out there. So that's awesome. So and you're coming to CSS DevConf? Is that right?
I am, yes, and I'll be speaking there.
Sweet, awesome. I'm really happy you're doing that, and just because, and we're just let you know when we're recording this, we are frantically putting the dots on our I's and crossing the T's for it because it's happening very soon.
I know.
Yeah, so we're like, we're really happy to see everyone who comes in. What topic are you talking about?
I'm talking about generating a living style guide from CSS.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Well, a style guide is essentially a pattern library of the site. So what do the various components look like? And a living style guide is generated from the source. So if you have comments, documentation in your CSS that then get parsed, and maybe they include markup, maybe the markup is external, the partials are maybe even used by the website. The idea is to be able to generate that style guide at any point based on the content that's in the CSS so that your documentation is always up to date. You're not creating something off on the side, we added the new component, we always have to go update the style guide for it. You add the new component, you add the documentation there, you regenerate the style guide, and everything is there and it's up to date.
Cool. Awesome. And cool. Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you talk again.
Thanks.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's about it. All I have for today was mostly I have a whole bunch of stuff about San Antonio stuck in my head because we're planning for the conference. So I don't want to give out too much of what we're doing so far, but I don't want to spill it too much on the podcast. But yeah, thank you so much for being with us today. Very much appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Awesome. How can people find you on the internet, especially your website where they can find out how to sign up for your ebook when it launches or your book when it launches and on all that good stuff too?
Yeah, so my website is mattvanderpol.com, MATTVANDERPOL.com. You can read about our house at house.vanderpol.net. I tweet infrequently at Bookwyrm, BOOKWYRM. Um, and yeah,
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And I look forward to seeing you in probably a week or so.
sounds great. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Cool.
Okay.